As we approach the grand finale of this year's Champions Trophy, we take a step back to revisit the biggest what if moments in the tournament's history. Those pivotal twists that could have changed everything.
What if a different team had lifted the trophy? What if a single over had gone the other way? From dramatic collapses to forgotten heroics, we explore how these moments shape the legacy of the Champions Trophy and the teams involved.
Join us as we unravel Champions Trophy's greatest what could have been stories. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Reverse Sweep Show. It's been a long time since I last saw you, AB, on the pod. What have you been up to?
Yeah, a lot that has been going on, SS. A couple of weeks back, we were a little distracted by the India versus Pakistan match in the Champions Trophy. So we decided to take a much needed break from the pod, a well deserved break, rather, I would say that. Last week, I was again on a well deserved vacation somewhere in Southeast Asia. And it feels good to be back on the pod with everything that is going on around with Champions Trophy. I'm really looking forward to it, and really looking forward to talking about cricket on this pod. It felt so good to research about the topic, to even take out the microphone and just get on a meeting with you and start recording this. So yeah, that is what has been up to on my side. What's been up at your end, SS?
Yeah, so I did a solo pod around some of the special episodes about India in Champions Trophy, and that was more of a monologue and what my thought process would be. So we would love to have an episode where you would like to comment on it. But yeah, otherwise, Champions Trophy has been great as a viewer of Indian cricket and enjoying how well they are playing, and we hope the best for tomorrow as well in the big final, tackling a demon of 25 years past. Also, in general, also it's been just fun to watch ODI cricket again after the World Cup. I think first time I'm really tuning back into the ODI game, and we have now a triangular series out of the blue happening very soon amidst all the IPL stuff in Sri Lanka. So yeah, good days for ODI cricket. And today, in today's episode, we are going to relive some older memories of ODI cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, it's so refreshing watching ODI cricket. And specifically for me, it has been really refreshing watching Kohli ace these chases.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, SS, we are going to look back at ODI cricket. And so the topic for today's discussion on the pod is about reliving some of the big what if hypothetical Champions Trophy moments. So what we are going to discuss is one story from SS and one story from my side on what we feel have been the biggest what if moments in the history of Champions Trophy, and what are the what ifs that could have shot off from there. So
Yeah, I think it was one of those meta episodes that we had been planning that at some point we would love to talk about, because we tried to do some India-centric content in the last the solo pod that I did touched upon the different aspects, but today maybe or maybe not, we will go on the same lines, or otherwise we will go across. There is some commonality, it seems, between the two topics that we have picked up, but we will let our listeners remain a bit patient till we get there. But yeah, the entire premise is very simple, that we tell our context, tell our what if, and the possible offshoots on what could have been. And then each of us could rate, comment, respond to it. And yeah, so that's one story each for today. And starting it off, since you were absent from the last couple of weeks, I would like to give you the mic to first tell your story. Tell us one story from all the previous editions of Champions Trophy that you find more interesting and has, let's say, the more, you know, the what if has been so interesting in your mind. What is that one story?
yeah, this time I still look at a India-centric topic, and I want to look at what India's journey in Champions Trophy has been, and then I talk about that one pivotal moment that could have changed everything. So India is in the finals of this edition of Champions Trophy. India was in the final of the last edition of the Champions Trophy, and India was in the final of the second edition of the Champions Trophy. So we have had a long history of making it to the finals of Champions Trophy. But starting off with 2000, we made it to the finals versus New Zealand. And this is the instance that, as you were referring to, as fighting the demons of 25 years past. The demons being a New Zealand all-rounder in Chris Gaines coming out when we were looking like we would have won the match. We could have won the match and scoring an amazing century there. In fact, I remember very clearly having seen that match, and Chris Gaines is one of those guys that I loved and also hated at the same time. Such an amazing cricketer, but always pulled up and always uh, gave his best against us. So yeah, that final 2000 we lost. Then again in 2002 we made it to the finals, but it was a rain affected match. Both the attempts at closing down the match in vain. So India and Sri Lanka left the trophy together. That was India's first win in Champions Trophy, but didn't effectively feel like a win because it was a joint win eventually, and we didn't win the final versus Sri Lanka. So till now, India hasn't won a Champions Trophy final, and then it's a bit of a break for Indian team in making to the finals of Champions Trophy. A few editions that we didn't make it. Then comes 2013, apparently the last edition of Champions Trophy, because ICC thinks that they want to have just one format, one tournament per format, and the Champions Trophy would soon be replaced by the Test Championship, which eventually also did happen. But then Champions Trophy is still there, and 2013, the last edition supposedly of Champions Trophy. And India is a strong white ball team, as we all know it at that point of time. 2011, we won the World Cup. Still a fairly strong side led by Dhoni. We have the dynamic duo of Shikhar Dhawan and Rohit Sharma up top, and we know for the years to come they would dominate that spot in the team. And then we have a pretty star-studded lineup, as we always do. But then we find ourselves in the finals against England, and in a very ironical way, it's a rain-impacted match and reduced to 20 overs. It's like, as you were putting it,
It's like the rain gods saying that, hey,
that
cricket viewers, this is the new format you better get used to. So we'll make the 50 over ICC final look like a T20 game.
absolutely. And this is where I come to the point that the very destiny of the format or the tournament, ICC Champions Trophy, and the future of Indian team in winning the ICC tournaments was at the same place, was intertwined. If India had lost that match, we could have very well lost that match, then possibly we might not have seen another Champions Trophy. But then coming back to the match that we had, India versus England final, there were so many what ifs because of which the match could have turned either way. It was a very closely fought match. India batted first. We were at around 60 for 5 when Dhoni got out, and we had Virat Kohli and Ravindra Jadeja at crease. And we could have very easily bundled out for a score of under 100. But we were able to somehow stitch a good partnership between Kohli and Jadeja, which eventually saw us reaching a total of 130. Not a winning score by any means, but something that we could have fought on to. And even there, even during that partnership, despite it being a good one, there was a very simple catch drop of Kohli when we were around 90. And I feel that was around some 16th or 17th over mark. Very easily could have reduced at least 15-20 runs from our score. So that would have made it a definite below par score, which we could not have like even defended. And then England comes on to bat, chasing a target of 130 runs in 20 overs. A few really good stumpings by Dhoni. One really, really close call of Ian Bill that could have gone either ways. So another big micro what if moment. Honestly, if I look at the replays right now, highlights right now, it could have been a 50-50 call. It could as well
Mhm.
have been a not out. Then England are four down, need some 20 odd runs of 16 balls. Ishan Sharma bowling and picks up those two wickets of the two set batters, Ian Morgan and Ravi Bopara, and that triggers an English collapse. Again, something which is a big what if. What if Ian Morgan hadn't mishit that ball to Ravi Chandran Ashwin? What if they just kept their cool? What if they didn't collapse? And then next over, Ravi Jadeja, again a couple of wickets, and England team are completely now collapsed. They are 8 down into the final over, Ashwin bowling. And we all know what happened after that. India were able to defend the score, were able to win the Champions Trophy. And I feel that was a big trigger in Champions Trophy being accepted globally as a tournament that people would want to watch. And
And
something,
also, and also men wearing white suit coming onto the podium to celebrate a trophy win, that was also acceptable.
yeah, and I remember Kohli dancing at the end of it. And there were
Yeah.
so many posts right now that people want to see him recreate that moment tomorrow. But
Yeah, I think I remember that pretty well, that entire tournament, just because that's the start that of Dhawan and Rohit as a partnership. I remember the practice game. I was watching at my uncle's place when India were playing Australia in the practice game, and that was the first time when we started getting broadcasts of even practice games for an ICC event. And remember Dhawan and Rohit doing very well, and I was like, okay, this could be a really good partnership. But yeah, I think for 80% of the final, I remember I was like, okay, this is England's to lose. This is England's to lose. We would have loved to have like a 50 over game, and maybe we would have, we were the ODI champions at that point of time. Still, we were struggling in test format, but pretty good ODI team. So, uh, I think it was just a turn. I didn't expect England to collapse from there, but that Ishan Sharma not being in great form, not considered to be a good ODI bowler, had a difficult IPL spell as well. I think we just stole it. I remember Ashwin's final ball. Was it Stuart Broad who was batting? I don't remember who was the final batter who was trying to hit him. But I remember Dhoni's first time and the only time where I've seen him exuberantly celebrating instantly when the event has happened. Otherwise, he's the Mr. Cool.
very
Maybe he
calm.
celebrates in the dressing room, but at that moment, I saw him jumping when the batter missed Ashwin's delivery. So it was unexpected because it came like in a span of 4 overs. Okay, we are losing, we are losing, we are losing, and then suddenly it turns and we win. So that I think exhilaration was felt not only in the fans but also in Dhoni.
Absolutely. And I think that was also felt in the boardrooms of ICC meetings where they decided to give ICC Champions Trophy another chance.
One more go,
One
and
more
then
go
Pakistan wins, and then they decide to keep Pakistan champion for 8 years.
for 8 years. And then what happens in 2025? Pakistan gets to host and they're out in 4 days in a way
Four
that
days.
only Pakistan can do.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you decided to pick this topic, as you will get to know when I talk about my topic. But more importantly, because in the solo pod, I did touch upon India's tries in Champions trophies, and I did mention about 2000 final against 2002, the 2 day final, as I like to call, because it happened on 2 days, and both days India were kind of ahead. I mentioned about 2013, but only in passing. So it's great that you, in a way, referred to that and gave us this thing. But if you had to pick like one moment, just one moment where it could have been quite different, what will be one moment amidst all the possible what ifs in that final?
If you have to ask me that question, I would say it has to be Ishan Sharma's over because that
Hmm.
was a time when we were completely behind in the game. We were miles behind in the game, and that one over completely shifted the momentum of the game. 2 wickets, both of them set batters, Owen Morgan, Ravi Bopara, and then that induced panic in the English side. Everyone who came on was struggling, run-outs everywhere, uh, like not hitting the ball properly, struggling against Ravi Jadeja in the next over. I think that was one point which triggered all of that. That one over by Ishan Sharma, that slow ball to Owen Morgan, him,
I remember that. That was really good. And I was like,
yeah.
okay,
And plus, I feel that was one over which completely turned the game on its head. And because it was so close to the finish of the game that it had the maximum impact on the game. Like I can talk about that
I,
Kohli catch drop, but then that was
yeah.
still in the first innings. But this over by Ishan
I
Sharma,
was quite interesting as well because just 2 years back you had won a World Cup with Sachin there, with Sehwag there, with a kind of a different bowling attack as well. Zahir Khan was leading the attack, Harbhajan was there, and Yusuf Pathan was in the squad. Um, Yuvraj was there. 2 years down the line, you go into a Champions Trophy. You start playing really well with a different opening combination of Dhawan and Rohit, who were nowhere in the fray in 2011 World Cup. You have a Kohli, you have a Dhoni. Kohli has become a much bigger player now for you. A different kind of team, a match that turns into a T20 game. You're behind and somehow you find a way to win. You've got Ashwin who plays a bigger role than he did in 2011. So this was like a strangely transitioning team, the team that then somehow reaches a semi-final of 15 World Cup and loses to Australia, which we just couldn't. So it was like it went through a transition phase, then a down phase, then again a transition, good position in the Coach Shastri era for 17 final, we lose it. So in terms of also the personnel, if 2023 World Cup didn't happen, uh, you would say that would be like one of the crowning achievement of these set of players in terms of the ODI format because they lost the 17 final.
Yeah.
They didn't play that well in 19. They just huffed and puffed to the semi-final, and you could argue in some days that we could have reached the final and we would have defeated England, but I don't think so. Even if we would have won against New Zealand, England were the favorites in 19-1. And 23, till 23, you would say that was like the best performance. It gave us the ICC trophy, and it would have been sad to not have even that. So in a way, this transition team somehow found a way to win the game. You can attribute it to Dhoni's captaincy. It is relegated in Dhoni's achievements as a third number behind the World Cup and behind the T20 World Cup, but it holds a significant landmark that this is one follow up. And when you win a Champions Trophy on the back of a ICC World Cup win, everyone knows that you are the number one team. You backed it up. It's like winning the second ring after winning the first ring in NBA terms. So it is like an often sedated moment. Maybe after tomorrow's win, it will be even more sedated because this is a more
Worse.
celebrated team after tomorrow's win because I'm so confident for tomorrow.
95%
Right?
chances we
So
give India. 99, 100,
95%,
110.
95%, 95% is good. I don't want to be too cocky, uh, but but it's definitely such a nostalgia pick to go back to 13 and pick another win. I just love the white suited Indian team coming out with the rain flying around and celebrating. So a lot of nice memories of that.
Absolutely. And you rightly put it. It's the third trophy in Dhoni's cabinet. And okay, it's the third one, but it's also one of those trophies which we always look back at as
Yeah,
we always
we
used to call
kept
it a
looking,
eleven year
yeah, we
drought
kept
and not a
looking back.
13-year drought.
Yeah, we kept looking back at it. Okay, we have that, we have that, we have that. Maybe it's going to come, it's going to come, it's going. Finally, it came in 2024 T20 when we're still waiting for the ODI one. Probably it comes tomorrow. But yeah, till then, till one day, it's been 12 years since last ICC
That
trophy,
was a
so it'll,
Champions Trophy.
so it's a great timing to talk about it. Maybe tomorrow it will all change and we can start. Okay, that we are still the Champions Trophy winners.
Yeah,
Great one.
and if we talk about Dhoni's legacy, the legacy is even more cementified by the fact that he has won all the three trophies in white ball cricket.
Available to him. Yeah,
Yeah, available to him at
available to
that point of
him.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
so he
yeah,
did all three, and had it been two out of three, it would have felt a bit incomplete. And plus,
yeah, yeah, yeah. He also won a lot of Indian Oil Cups. All the series, bilateral series versus Sri Lanka that we used to love playing back in the day. So he has got everything. He's got the full cabinet full of trophies available to him in white ball cricket.
yeah, absolutely. And I think if that didn't happen, then I feel somewhere deep down in my heart that we wouldn't be having this Champions Trophy as well.
Especially when you alluded that 2002 we don't count still as a win because it was a shared trophy.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was my story, my one big what if moment from the history of Champions Trophy. Now over to USS. What's your big what if?
It is one of the most fascinating stories that I find in the cricket that I watched. uh, because it came out of the blue. Nobody expected it to happen from a macro level and also at a micro level within the what was happening in the match. It's got some eerie similarities to what your theme was. It was England in the final of a Champions Trophy. The event was played in England. Only the location changed. I think the 13 final was in Birmingham, while this one was in Oval. But I'm talking about the 2004 Champions Trophy final, West Indies versus England. If you ask somebody who had like a very broad idea about how cricket was evolving in 90s and 2000s and ask them to make a random guess on who were the two finalists of 2004 Champions Trophy, you would have said, okay, maybe Australia versus Pakistan, Australia versus Sri Lanka. Maybe if New Zealand had a good tournament, New Zealand versus South Africa, maybe a final. But no, the final was between West Indies and England, two teams that you wouldn't think of reaching a final. England were doing pretty well at that point of time because they had this Vaughan captaincy. Trescothick was a very good player. You had Flintoff as well, and a decent bowling attack with Harmison and the likes coming through. And they were becoming a decent enough team in both formats. They were winning a lot of test series at home, and that would obviously go on for 2005 Ashes and everything. West Indies were like the up and down team. They will win series, couple of series unexpectedly. They won 4-3 versus India. I remember a couple of years down the line, they won against India again at home. They used to win consistently one day series versus England, home and away. I remember a series versus Australia, they lost 4-3. So they were like competitive team, I would say. And they also reached the 2006 final as well. But here we are talking about 2004 final. The tournament was interesting. It received very less attention in England. Also partly because they didn't advertise it well. It was like a second-rate competition. Test cricket was still the pinnacle form, and people had seen Test cricket throughout the summer because this tournament was being held in September. So it was the very end of English summer. So from pitches and conditions perspective, from weather conditions, from general public enthusiasm, it was like at the ebb of it. So nobody was looking into it. The format was four groups of three teams each. The winner go to the semi-final. India lost to Pakistan. I think that was one of the first times I would remember India losing to Pakistan in an ICC event. Mohammad Yusuf making 80 and they chased down a low score in Birmingham. So the first semi-final was, I think one of the semi-finals was Pakistan playing West Indies, and Pakistan used to feel now they are in the semi-finals. Now everyone is behind them. They will do well. No, they skittle out for 130 runs and West Indies chase it down easily. They reach the final. Australia losing to England in a semi-final of an ICC event back in those times. It's unbelievable. People just forget that. They lost it. So England reached the final. So two teams that you wouldn't think. West Indies win the toss. Lara wins the toss and asks England to bat. And it was those conditions, drizzly, cloudy, late September. It was quite cold. People wearing cricket pullovers. And difficult start for England. Kept losing wickets. Marcus Trescothick, we both are fans of his batting and how he would attack seamers and spinners alike, use his footwork and very confident. He made a century and he made almost 50% of runs that England scored in that game because England ended up around 220 runs and he scored around 105 or 110 runs. So he was the main star. And such were the conditions that people like Wavell Hines, who would you think about as a batter, who bowled like 1 over per average in his entire ODI career, took 3 wickets. Yeah, so England were restricted. There were a lot of rain coming down, so it was rain affected as well. But somehow the innings finished and West Indies came out to bat. And because of the conditions, good bowling attack, Flintoff, Harmison, Darren Gough, and also the WW bowlers, Paul Collingwood and Marcus Trescothick, all chipped in. Everyone took wickets. Even Marcus Trescothick took wickets. Collingwood took wickets.
I like how you say WW bowlers.
Yeah,
Something I
WW
can't
bowlers.
imagine in cricket these days.
Now, yeah, they have been just eliminated because of the two wide ball rules and also the pitches and conditions and also the uh, general way of how batters think and bat now of T20 cricket and all that. So West Indies really struggled throughout the chase. They were reduced to 120 or 130 for 8. I remember 140 or something for 8 when I tuned in back after the collapse, and Chandrapal had just got out, and England thought that they had the trophy in their hand. They had the ICC trophy, never win anything, and Michael Vaughan was up, Flintoff was up, and crowd was whatever little crowd had come in, they were up. And then the two most indistinguished batters come out to bat. You have a wicketkeeper batting at number 9 in ODI cricket, which is unthinkable, Courtney Brown, and Ian Bradshaw, who took 2 wickets. He was a left-arm seamer. Both went on to play only 60 odd ODIs for West Indies, but at that moment they had each played like 12 or 15 ODIs, had scored like cumulatively 100 runs. So you would think that the match is over. You still had Harmison to bowl, you still had Flintoff bowl. One thing, and only one thing which West Indies had done well in the chase is that they were ahead in the run rate because the run rate required was originally only 4.2 or 4.3. So they weren't doing bad on that front. And these guys start batting. They start getting some streaky singles, streaky fours, some close run out chances, but they keep batting and it started frustrating the English bowlers. And then the pivotal moment comes, which is the what if for me. Andrew Flintoff has been bowling well. He took 3 wickets already, top of his game. He bowls like kind of an in dipper and it strikes Courtney Brown right in front. He was absolutely plumb. English fielders and Flintoff were absolutely appealing for it. But the umpire, I think it was Rudy Goodson, who said no to it. There was no DRS back in the day. Otherwise, he was plumb. I checked out the highlights again. He was middle leg. He was completely gone. And there were 40, 45 runs still to be made. They survived that. Then they survived Harmison's spell. And I remember this very vividly. Ian Bradshaw, when he survived the last ball of Harmison, which was around 42nd, 43rd over, he did a fist pump with Courtney Brown, thinking that now we have done the hard part. Now we can survive this. And Darren Gough wasn't at the top of his game. It's probably his last ODI game or something. And they kept getting those streaky boundaries. And out of the blue, these two guys from Barbados who had played like 30 ODIs between them went on to win the game for West Indies. West Indies are the Champions Trophy winners. And it's their first ICC trophy since the 1979 ODI World Cup. So think of all the players that played. Marshall, Richie Richardson, we've played a lot in the 80s as well. You had Lara, Hooper, Jimmy Adams, all the really decent fast bowlers in the 90s. None of them could win an ICC event. Okay, there was no Champions Trophy, but at least they had starting in 98. And they win this. This is one of the most out of bluish, under the radar thing that people just forget that West Indies were the Champions Trophy winners in 2004 when Australia were winning all the ODIs that they were playing and they didn't even reach the final.
I
Now, people talk about West Indies winning T20 World Cups, but West Indies is a great T20 side. But one day event in 2004, are you kidding me? And they did that.
I absolutely love the story. It's like the blip in the Matrix at that time.
Absolutely.
West Indies were at best a very average, middling ODI side, and though they had a few good players, Brian Lara, of course, one of them, but as a unit, they just struggled all the time. I remember as even Indian team who would at times struggle with Zimbabwe or Kenya, but I was very comfortable watching Indian team take
Yeah,
on the
9 out of
series.
10 times, if India
Yeah,
plays Zimbabwe, Kenya, West Indies, they will win. Even though I was looking at West Indies record pre and post this Champions Trophy. Pre-Champions Trophy, as I mentioned, they had like a couple of very good players, Gale, Sarwan, Chandrapal, Lara. They had good batting attack, but bowling was really struggling. So if batters could do well, like in India, they could put pressure and they win matches, but they wouldn't do it consistently. Even after this Champions Trophy, they did not do that well for 1 or 2 years. But it's just a blip in the matrix, and I really feel this affected England more. That England went again so close, not winning, and that's their thing. That was what was alluded even to on 13. So till the Morgan Revolution came, it could have come far earlier in white ball cricket if they had won a couple of Champions Trophies here and there or big events. For West Indies, it was all entropy. It has always been entropy with them. Even if you win, you don't know what will happen to their cricket. They had a very good, stable T20, 5 years, 7 year shelf life. Now they are back being like a second-rate T20 side. But this one day thing is like an oasis in the desert for them. Nobody could imagine that they could do it. And nothing came of it as well. As I said, they just reached the 2006 final again, didn't, and then they didn't do anything well in the World Cup that happened in their own country in 2007. So it was just a blip, and this blip is like crazy. And I was like, okay, if this Courtney Brown was given LBW, even this blip doesn't happen. So there's nothing to look forward to, and that's the memory that these guys carry. That we keep forgetting about Bradshaw and Brown and what these guys did. Imagine something happens tomorrow. We have got New Zealand reduced for 8 wickets, and then O'Rourke and Matt Henry come out and win the game for New Zealand. That will be such a distorting feeling that we will never forget in our life.
absolutely. And I also completely agree with the point that you make that it had a much bigger impact on English cricket. They
Yeah,
had a white ball revolution that happened probably a decade later. They
yeah,
were in the earlier part of 2000s starting to look like a good team. And as we were also discussing, they went on to become a really good test team. They won the Ashes. But even in the white ball cricket, they were always up and about. We spoke in one of the earlier episodes about the NatWest Trophy final, where we
yeah.
won, and England again, towards the very end of the game, could not close out the match. So they were always looking like a good team. but they somehow
Yeah.
always struggle to cross the line in the big tournaments.
And maybe that was the reason because they were looking like a good team, reaching those finals, but losing is why the team management and the board never thought that they could need to think out of the box. They had to face that humiliating defeat to Bangladesh in the 15 World Cup to look themselves in the mirror and think that we really need to change this. We need to change the way how we play. We need to give precedence to ODI as a format and not just focus our attention to red ball cricket. If they would have been eliminated at an earlier stage, even though this tournament had no traction in the UK, they could have, let's say, given more eggs to this basket in general. But it's somehow just it's bonkers to me that West Indies could win a Champions Trophy in an era where Australia was so dominant, South Africa was such a great team, Pakistan were looking so good in the tournament, England were playing in their own conditions. They were like the seventh or the eighth seed. Now, which are the tournaments that you could remember in your lifetime where the eighth seed or the seventh seed has went on to win an ODI trophy? And forget about the ICC trophy. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I, in fact, remember one of our previous episodes, SS, and you predicted that Afghanistan's first ICC win will come in a Champions Trophy. So
And that was one
probably,
of the logics. And they're looking good. If there was no rain intervention and they played like the full game, who knows? They could be playing the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy. They're a good team. So yeah, it's based on what I saw with West Indies that things can happen in cricket when you least expect it.
absolutely. And I think Champions Trophy is one of those formats which is most conducive to this.
Yeah, absolutely, because the teams are in transition phase. It's between the two World Cups. People are experimenting new players. Things can happen. And that's why I love Champions Trophy. Waited 8 years for it to happen again. I hope they continue it. I think it's already on the Future Tours program that ICC will keep conducting it. Maybe at some point they will change Champions Trophy to also a T20 format to have even more entropy. But so far, I think it's great for ODI cricket. But there you have it, guys. Those were the two stories that we had, both featuring England, Champions Trophy in England, both featuring a final, one India winning, and when the other one where Columbus wanted to reach, but reached West Indies. So India and Indies today for us in the finals and the storyline around it. Maybe this is the last episode we do on Champions Trophy. It was fun watching it and fun reliving some of the memories through this podcast. So do give us your review and feedback. And next week we will be back with a brand new episode. Till then, take care and bye bye.